following is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com. This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln and online at merealty.com.
Good morning. Thank you for tuning into Viewpoint on 96.3. We've got a call already this morning. It is going to be a fun show, folks. Anyway, again, thank you for tuning in to 96.3 WLCN Viewpoint. We've got a special guest with us today, and as phone lines are open, or you can call Buster's cell phone too. We will be more than happy to give that out to anybody listening. The station's phone line number is 217-648-5510. Feel free to call in with your kudos or questions. We've got Buster Rankin with us. Gretchen, his beautiful bride, is at home milking, working, along with their daughter Laura. Wonderful family, lives right across Interstate 55 from us, I guess you can say. And you're Logan County's last dairy farmer. And but welcome, Buster. We greatly appreciate you being on.
Well, I got to add to that. It's not just the last dairy herd in Logan County. We have to add DeWitt, Sangamon, Mason, Menard. Mm-hmm. And whenever last time milk inspector or milk tester come through, he's in 24 counties and 18 dairy herds left. And he's coming out of the Quad Cities. So that pretty well summarizes the collapse of the dairy industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And folks, if you're listening, we're here to tell a story. We're here to, show what it takes to, be in the farming industry. Inputs are high, times are changing, how families do adapt and change. And some families say, hey, we're going to retire. We, don't want to do it, whether you agree or disagree. That's your viewpoint, I guess you could say. So, but anyway, nonetheless, so welcome, Buster. Growing up as a kid, we had Lash Dairy come to our farm. Did you, growing up, let me back up. When did your family start Rankin Farms?
We'll go back to when Dad was a kid. He's always raised Guernseys. He actually grew up on what's the Bach farm there, just south of Lawndale. You'll see 3 grain bins sitting around the place now. And in 61, they walked the dairy cows up to where we're presently milking at. They're just south of Atlanta. And over the years, we just kept going with his genetics. And a number of years ago, my in-laws, they ended up with a tremendous flood up there, and their dairy barn was closed, so we brought down their genetics too. So the last remaining Offenheiser dairy cow is still with us, and she's right now 20 years old. So, that's a lot of history. Some people are going to hand down mementos or whatever. No, I'm handing down family genetics on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Where did Gretchen's family grow up at then, or hail from?
There's a little, if you ever get a chance to go up and see some awesome scenery, go up to Joe Davies County during the summer, spring and summer, early fall. And those hills and hollows up there are something different. But yeah, so a little town called Elizabeth up there off of Route 20.
Okay.
And so her family also milked cows for years and had the cows from grandpa's come over. Mm-hmm. And that's how they got started and kept going.
So you brought down Gretchen's herd, basically, what they
their
had.
Their Guernsey side came down, yes.
Neat. So do you guys just have Guernseys there? And for some of our listeners, they truly probably associate dairy with black and white, which would be Holsteins. So kind of give a little bit of background on Guernseys?
I've always been Guernseys. And the in-laws, they had a combined Holstein Guernsey herd. My sister, she married into a Guernsey herd up by Carlock. And so the Guernsey cow, to us, is, really something that's a family heritage. And there's a lot of different angles that we can talk about on the different breeds and different milk components. One of the fun stories about the Guernsey breed is that the Mayo Clinic actually used raw Guernsey milk in the early 1900s to treat cancer.
Really? That is neat.
That's something we didn't talk about before we came in.
We did not discuss that one.
I had to throw that out there.
I like that. Thank you. Yeah.
So there's so much difference in breed taste of milk that unless you actually know, it's fun.
Right. So how many head do you guys milk now, or roughly milk on an average throughout?
On an average, I hate going above 50 cows because our old facilities, they just don't handle much more than that. So usually 35, 45 cows, that's kind of our little sweet spot where we're not out in the barn all day. So.
And the girls know when it's time to come up and milk?
And the girls know when it's time. I'm talking about the four-legged girls now.
Right. About what times do you milk? To kind of give a brief, insight into your day on an average. I mean, I know it's farming. Everything changes on a whim. But, for our listeners who do not grow up agriculture,
my day usually starts, around 5 o'clock when the alarm goes off. And by the time I get up, figure out which ends, which pants leg to put on first, so to speak. And it's about 5:30, 5:45 when I wander out the door. And go out there anywhere from 8:30, 9:30 is when we go back in, eat some breakfast and shift gears, take care of the crops and whatever else needs to be done that day. And 4:30, we have a lady that's been with us for a number of years now, Deb Porter out of Chestnut. And I can't say enough about this lady because she loves them old cows more than we do, I think. And she'll pull in at 4:30, 4:31 at the latest, and away we go again. So, yeah, I don't know what I'd do without her, so it's good having a backup plan.
Now, I know in years past, a few years ago, you have some special kudos and thank yous to some special people in your life. Kind of touch on that then.
Well,
for
back
listeners.
a number of years ago, I got laid up and I was in the hospital for multiple days, like 13 back to back, and I was out for a little while and then I had to go back in for 7. And without David Wachter is one, Frank and Alex Oblet, and a young man by the name of Hayden Chapman. Without them being on board and picking up the slack, I can say beyond reasonable doubt we wouldn't be milking today. A fun story about Hayden was he pulled in, I was looking for a high school kid, come and help milk. And put the word out time and time again, looking for somebody. Well, nobody wanted to do it. And one Sunday night, he wanders in the door. And we talked for a little bit. I said, well, I'm busy. Go over here and talk to the ladies. And he stood there the rest of the time watching milk. And is this something you want to do? Yeah. When do you want to start? Tomorrow night? It's okay. A week later, I was laying in the hospital.
Wow.
So it's amazing how some things work in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so recently, I had a hip replaced just a year ago. And I've got to give kudos once again to the David Wachter and the Hayden Chapman come back on board. And of course, Deb was there. And that's where you really got to start looking around and thanking some people. CIA. I couldn't climb in and out of the combine to get things going. And so they took the combine in, looked it over, and Mr. Mike Wheatley hopped in it, combined the wheat. So, it's just folks like that that have stepped up and helped keep the business going while I was incapacitated for a day or two.
And CIA not being the government agency.
No, we're talking about Central Illinois Ag and The Schmidt Group there, yes.
Yeah.
So
I know you would go that route.
no, I
CIA.
don't. Yeah, I don't want to see the CIA pulling on my place. No, we don't want to do that.
So, through the years, what have you seen the changes in the dairy industry here in Illinois, and if you want to kind of touch light, within the United States too as well? What changes have you seen? That
Well, one of the really, I guess, sad changes is back when I was a little younger. The show ring down at Springfield was full, and it doesn't matter which breed of cow we're talking about, whether it's the beef side, hog side. There was always a lot of livestock there.
Mm-hmm.
And now, not so much. And one of the other things that we really probably ought to talk for a second about is we had a group class, and most of the show is called To Get a Sire. Well, that showed the individual of everybody's different herds, because a little bit of different genetics there, and we don't have that anymore. It's all cookie cutter genetics. Now, I'm not that way over there. I'm old school. I kind of like to have the herd bull around that is not out of the semen tank. So is that going to be worth something down the road in 3, 4, 5 years? I hope so, and I think it will be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an issue. And we'll go back, as I was saying, even if you knew anything about the people showing, you could walk in there with 10 cows, let them loose. And you could actually walk up, grab a cow, take her back to the right owner, because there was just that little bit different trait between everybody's different herds. And like I say, it's sad that we've lost that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing we've lost is, and I looked at a paper there yesterday trying to come up with what to say. Prairie Farms is who we've shipped to since last year. He's went out of business. They lost 41 herds over the last year from February to February. Well, what does that mean to our local economy? That's 41 tractors. It's not being sold 41 round balers. It's not being sold and maintained. So it's not just here. It's nationally, and that's just the Prairie Farms group here and local that we've lost that many people.
Yeah.
So are we headed on the right path by saying, well, you can only be profitable by milking 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 cows? I disagree. I think there's a lot of profit that can be made by staying exactly where I'm at. Because I'm not in the death spiral, what I'll call the death spiral. Well, I got to have more, so I got to hire more help. So I got to have bill more billing, and at the end of the day, what's going to happen whenever I do retire? Or whoever's following that cycle, what's going to happen there? Because the futures are kids. We got to get them brought in.
Right. I mean, you brought up last dairy, like I said, and I apologize for starting off and then not going into your history. But, as a kid, I grew up with last dairy being delivered to the farm. The glass bottle, was our bottles, and the cottage cheese from them, the ice cream from them. And so your family sold to Lash Dairy, correct?
We sold to Lash Dairy, and this is a very kind of a stressful week or two for my father and a lot of producers. Oberweis come in. They bought the route, but they did not buy the dairy plant. And so whenever that happened, they said, you have a week to find another processor.
Really?
And so you're sitting there, you're looking at the option of, okay, if Prairie Farms did not pick us up, or Swiss Valley, what are we going to do? We have only one option at that time. Today, the option's a little bit greater because there are companies out there making the micro dairy processing plants, and we can pull on the farm fairly quickly. But there again, you got to be ready to open the wallet. So that's right now. Is it an option for us if things go bad? I don't know. My saving grace with Prairie Farms, and I've got to give Prairie Farms kudos on this one is my milk's bouncing between Rockford and Carlinville. And that's not out our back door by any means.
Like Lash Dairy, because Lash
Dairy was right up the
Bloomington.
road. Everybody, and that goes back to my statement about local jobs, is, I got to give them credit. Is Prairie Farms is not saying, no, you're not milking enough, we don't want your milk. They're saying, yeah, well, as long as you're producing, we're going to take your milk.
So the semi that comes down and picks up from your farm, your wife was telling me a few months ago, Gretchen, was the route that he has. I mean, it's huge, actually, from farm to farm, because there's very little farms left, correct?
He is starting his day up at, by Mona's and Capona's. Up there, the two restaurants. And his last stop will be off of I-80. So he's coming down, picking us up, and then a stop at Bloomington, heading back north. So, yeah, the so few dairy farms that are there, you look at the amount of miles that these trucks have to travel to obtain a full load. Is just phenomenal. So,
and he's a local owner of his truck. Does he lease? Not to put you on the spot, or is that a Prairie Farms truck?
No, this is a private hauler. The Boar's Head Trucking is out of Roanoke, and they took over from basically Larry Kaufman out of Arthur. And I can't say enough about that group. And even the Boar's Head guys are great, because if there's a problem, say I'll leave a water tank on. They'll either shut it off or tell me about it. If they inspect the tank after it's pumped out and they see a problem, hey, we got a problem. We need to get on this. So you can't say enough about my hauler. I mean, he's fantastic right now.
But I guess I can say I'm making a point to our listeners listening that they're driving further. They're independently owned as well. It's a trickle-down effect as well. The fewer farms, and their inputs are higher for trucking. Fuel is not cheap. Insurance is not cheap, et cetera. The labor as well.
Well, and we've got to only spin off on the other side of this, because as a lot of people in the area know, they pushed real hard to drop a CO2 pipeline in. Well, my question to everybody out there is, why are we hauling our milk 100 miles or more to be processed and haul it back when we don't have to? We can lower our CO2 real quickly by having our local processors back and by having our local farms back.
Yep.
Fun little sales pitch.
Well, I tell you what, with our sales pitch, we're going to go to a commercial break, and we come back, we're going to keep talking with Buster Rankin from Rankin Farms.
Whether you're buying or selling your home, the brokers of Me Realty will work with you to get the deal done. As one of Central Illinois' top producing offices for decades, Me Realty has the experience to guide you through the process. You want results? Call the brokers of Me Realty at 217-735-5424, stop by the office at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, or check out local listings online at merealty.com.
Culver's is a family restaurant. To me, that means being the place that puts a smile on everyone's face. We're famous for our cooked-to-order butter burgers and frozen custard made daily inside our restaurants. But we've always believed more menu options mean more ways to brighten your day. We source the finest chicken to bring you our tenders and chicken sandwiches. And our cheese curds. They're a Wisconsin tradition we're proud to share with you. So take the next meal shift off and let us take care of you. Welcome to Delicious.
Culver's, home of the Butterburger, 2530 Woodlawn Road in Lincoln. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center makes an impact locally and beyond through a wide range of events, ministries, and outreaches. Pastors Steve and Debbie Owens invite you to worship Sunday mornings at 10:30 and attend Wednesday night Bible studies at 6:30. Connect with FGEC online, follow them on Facebook, download their app, and visit their new website at myfgec.org with live YouTube video streams as well as recordings of services and special events. Full Gospel Evangelistic Center, 304 North McLean Street in Lincoln.
Hi, welcome back to Viewpoint on 96.3 FM WLCN. Again, our listener lines are open, 217-648-5510 with any questions or kudos you may have for Buster Rankin of Rankin Farms. Question for you, Buster, and, well, I'm going to lead into it for you. Being in agriculture myself, and I know you watch the stories too, read the stories, and it seems like some of the news media, obviously not the ag news media, but the general news media, does not get the whole story. They grab something and then publish it, and then people are like, well, that's the God's honest truth. No, it's not. They do not dive into it. I guess what I want to do right now, promoting the dairy industry, is debunk the latest story from Reuters, because it's not all true, folks. It is not. Reuters came out with a story stating that the USDA stopped testing milk. Wrong, they did not. If you check your facts to our listeners, what they did was they halted it. They're changing labs, so your milk is still safe. It is still being tested. And we're going to ask firsthand knowledge here from Buster. Well, I mean, and seriously, you guys do test at the farm. I mean, so it does start at the farm. And, you know, it's sad. Someone says, well, I saw it on social media. It's the truth. No, it's not. It's not, you know, so it's there's more to this, you know, and do your research, people. And what I'm saying to you, I guess it's my sales pitch. Call your local producer, farmer, whatever you want to do, get the truth. So, but Buster, please explain the process of how safe our milk products are.
Our milk products are just phenomenally safe. If you're worried about antibiotic contamination, let's start with what I do and what happens before the milk truck leaves my place every day or every other day. Is if I treat a cow before I put her in the tank, I have a Delvo test kit. She goes in. She's not put in until she's clear. When the milk truck backs up and loads, he's taking milk samples. The Prairie Farms lab is checking for antibiotic contamination.
So right now, folks, if you're listening and counting, we've already got 3 tests going on that have taken place. Three tests.
And then, so before the truck is unloaded, it's tested for antibiotics. Whenever one of the things that the haulers are required to do is pop the tank open and take a smell, make sure that there's no odd smell to that milk before he loads. Because, you know, accidents happen, coolers break down, middle of the night, guys don't catch it when they start, power, you know, maybe a breaker tripped, whatever. So they can't take that milk. I'm very proud of my numbers, what I'm producing over there. We have 2 bacterial numbers that we go by. The least number they count is 2,000, and where you're running usually 2,000-3,000. So that's the least on this PI, pre-incubation, and the SBC is after it's bacteria. So, I'm proud of that number, and I like to maintain it. And that goes back to the way I was taught to produce milk, is that if it's not good enough for my table, it will never be good enough for yours. And that's something that was engraved by my dad years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's why, every day, every other day, we need milk. It goes to the house because I'm confident in the product I'm producing. So, as far as going to town and worrying about getting something,
yes.
There's also rules, very stringent, that you're doing food adulteration if you contaminate that milk purposely. Mm-hmm. That is past D grade. That's jail time if you go bad enough. So, that's something the public has to remember, that there are laws there and rules there that, you really don't want to deal with some of this.
Well, as Lloyd pointed out, CIA, not the Central Illinois Ag, the CIA, but no, but not to make light of the situation, people say, only read just a little bit and actually do not go a step further and get it straight from, I can say, the horse's mouth, or, do more research, and so shame on rooters. I will call them out. Shame. I mean, that news report that I read, I was like, you got to be kidding me. It was not true.
No, and there's so much to that. I mean, that's a large part of it is pride in what your product is. Mm-hmm. And putting out the best possible product that you can develop. And whether we're talking about a pig, steer, glass of milk, it doesn't
Farmers
matter.
care for that animal, that livestock, and like you said, it goes back to it. If I raise it, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for you. If not, we're out. That's the way it is. So.
And if you're raising a faulty product, like say, economics say you can't continue in.
Right.
You're closed.
True. So I'm glad we kind of debunked that one. However, so when somebody goes to the grocery store and sees Prairie Farms, they are buying local milk, co-op, farmer-owned milk products.
Yes. The Prairie Farms they call it self-sufficiency. So they do go on the open market and bring in some milk. But they're I think it was 88% self-sufficient for the Prairie Farms group. And so that's, just Prairie Farms producers. We've got stake in the company. And we have yelled and screamed about, keeping things as local and self-sufficient as we can.
So I want to let our listeners know, Walmart. Who would think Walmart owns 3 dairy farms?
Not dairy farms, or processing
They're
plants.
processing plants, right, correct, yes. So kind of enlighten us with that information there.
Well, if I've got my story straight, there's one in Fort Wayne, one in Kentucky, and one down in Texas. They're all kind of not too far from Prairie Farms plants. That's why I know about them. It's interesting that Walmart got into the dairy processing side of things because, we can save our customers dollars. Well, are they or are they not? That's usually it's costing somewhere. Mm-hmm. And once again, it goes back to probably the smaller producers because they're not going to go after guys like me. They want the tanker loads.
So do they own, and if you don't know, that's fine, or do they have any stock in the cows themselves that are actually producing then or not?
No, they don't. Not to my knowledge, they do not. Mm-hmm. So that's where Prairie Farms, we're buying into the co-op. We do have a stake in our business. And if you look at your private label and compare plant codes, it will tell you which plant that milk was processed at. And that's, you got your cell phone, I think it's My Dairy Plant is the website.
Uh-huh. Neat.
So it's a neat little sidebar. And if you're interested where that milk is being processed at.
Mm-hmm. What else do you want our listeners to know about the dairy industry? What do you think personally our future is within? And I know it's just your thoughts, not to put you on the spot, but still.
It's kind of a interesting future, I guess. Which route are we going to take? Because, as I said, we've lost 41 dairy producers on the prairie farm side, and there's more than that. Are we going to continue to expand and have only the mega herds?
You just lost the dairy farm industry did a 200 cow milking facility between Delavan and Tremont a few years ago too, as well.
Yes, and that is a well-known person in the area that is no longer milking. And so it doesn't really, right now, it doesn't matter what size you are. With the one used dairy equipment site that I'm on Facebook there's some tremendous operations that are closing. Their equipment's for sale, and we're not talking 50, 60 cow herds now. We're talking about the hundreds, the 500s, the 1,000 cow herds are selling out because it's not working.
Right. And like I said before we went on the air, I've got friends that live over by the Indiana-Ohio border. They were milking 800 head. They had a contract with Land O'Lakes, and Land O'Lakes came in one day, and seriously within a week, and pulled all their contracts, and they were scrambling on what to do. And a lot of producers, went out of business from that, and that was just a few years ago.
And I hate going down this rabbit hole, so to speak, but back in the first Trump administration, the deal with Canada and Mexico, there's a major butter processor in Eau Claire. Well, because their supply was going into Canada, there was a lot of dairy producers that lost their processor. And so, right, wrong, or indifferent, the politics behind the food is tremendous. And, we can't lie about it. That's what it is. The politics behind it is just phenomenal.
Right. What questions do you have, Lloyd?
Well, so what do you think is contributing to this loss of the smaller farms? Is it strictly economics? Is it maybe kids growing up and seeing all the long hours and so forth and thinking I want to go a different route? Or
to me, it's multitask. For those people who know a little bit about what I've been through, I spent almost 33 years at City of Bloomington. And so, 20 plus years I've been milking cows while I was still working at the city. And, the wife at the time picked up quite a bit of the slack that I couldn't be out there milking. But you learn a lot when you're in those situations. Like, why are you bothering to milk a cow for? You can go to the store and get all the milk you want. Well, excuse me, but somebody's got to produce it. I'm just the one stupid enough to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
But it's a passion and a love. And
it's a passion and a love. And that's probably one of the most truest statements that's made is if you think it's work, you're never going to be happy. And it doesn't matter what you're doing.
And I can
but if you
attest
go
to
out,
this.
and another friend of mine, he's following the same path that I was up at the city. He's milking a few cows, going to work. And he's like, I come home and I start milking cows. It's a vacation. And it really was, because the two are so opposite of each other. You get out there working with cows, and there's something relaxing about being
You don't have anybody
calling.
calling you. You don't have to.
No, you got the old cows kicking and swatting at them. But
Yeah.
and that is, and it's kind of an odd way of possibly saying it, but it does relax you working around the livestock.
However, but there are once in a blue moon days that nothing is going right. The sleet's heating your face. You're out there either fixing fence or working with an animal. You're going, why am I doing this?
Whenever it's
I'm
10 below
freezing,
and the
yes.
wind's blowing and the waters are froze and the heater's out in the milk house and you're going,
Yeah,
why?
we all say that. We do. Yeah.
Why did I get up this morning?
Am I going to retire tomorrow and get out of this? But no, and you keep doing it. So, yeah.
And then just another question that kind of popped into my mind. We've had Jamie Jones from the LMH Market on, and of course, locally grown produce and so forth. She's been struggling, I know, for years to try and find a dairy vendor, someone to come sell ice cream or something like that. Are those folks kind of going away as a sort of a ripple effect of the smaller dairy farms going away?
Well, and I got to throw this out, and let's go support Little Brown Cow Dairy over at Emden. Tremendous family. They went their own way. They left Prairie Farms. I've heard from several different people. What did they do to their milk? What do you mean? Well, it tastes so different than what is in the store. Mm-hmm. Well, it's easy enough. That's milk. That's the way milk God intended the milk to be. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this would be a good, would not be a good conversation unless I did mention them, because they're out there. There are other folks around that are selling raw milk, but you get into a different avenue when you go down that way. Mm-hmm.
They had to adapt. I know the Herberts very well. And as you know, each farm adapts to the changes that are coming, and they did. They've adapted tremendously well.
Tremendously well. And I haven't talked extensively about it, with which direction they've done this way and that way, but they're loving it. Mm-hmm. Well, they know the people that are coming on board. People are giving them thumbs up. We love your product.
And it is in local stores.
And it's in local stores.
They're doing very well.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's just each farm is different, from us being beef producers, what our operation is seed stock, and you got some people, are just strictly feeder calves. So every entity is different. How do you find that niche, as you know?
Yeah. And I'd be fibbing and say we haven't looked at going different avenues, but right now
it's working for you.
It's working for me. I'm in my 60s. Will I be in business a year, 2 years, 5 years? I don't know, but I know the clock's ticking.
But I know your daughter actually loves milk.
She loves the cows, and it's just, okay, how can we move something profitable over to her that she can do?
And she started her own egg business. We need to give a little shout out for Laura and her egg business.
Oh, whoever.
We got to bring up the chickens because she does make deliveries too.
That is, well, there is a side note to that. Everybody has heard about the chicken flu, the avian flu that's flying around. What better way to see if you got avian flu than have a bunch of chickens floating around here? But yeah, what started out as just one little red bird has ended up being 80 birds.
She's got quite a flock. I mean, she really does.
And it's fun because, you don't think there's any difference. Once again, pride in your product, free range, and it's fun watching the birds and the cats interact. I'm like, okay, you'd think all we'd see is a pile of feathers laying all over from the cats, and hope. And they're free range. They're out there. We haven't mowed the backyard yet this spring because they're eating it down.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, we were talking about our different niches. We had Chicken Johnson. Dick and Mary Johnson, they had a large chicken farm there, the west of Atlanta. And growing up, Cindy and I used to do the egg route on Friday, Saturday nights. One night would be at Vonti's, either Bloomington, Peoria, and the other night would be the other route. And, they're not producing anymore. So it just goes to show you things have changed. But they were confinement in buildings, I should say. But your daughter now is selling eggs and got her own chicken route like, Dick and Mary did. And so...
Yeah, and that chicken route kind of started with a dad's big mouth, but we won't go into that.
You got her into Bloomington, I see.
Got her into Bloomington. All I had to do was say, Well, my daughter's starting to raise chickens. I'll send her up. Okay.
She started with 1 and has 80. So
Yeah, started with 12, and then it just expanded. I'm like, okay.
So how often does she deliver then to Bloomington?
Bloomington's once a week, which by that time, okay, we want to go to a grocery store or whatever, and she likes to go visit and gift and gab. I don't know where she gets that from.
I have no idea either. It's not Gretchen. No. So anyway.
No, it's not Gretchen. It's got to be my dad.
Yeah.
Dad.
Yeah. But I mean, it's wonderful you got your daughter there, family evolving and trying, her thing too, and then working with you guys as well. So.
And that's, it's the fun part is the diversification part of it, looking for different avenues. It seems, we'll go back to some of the topic that we've talked about already, is there's kind of two trains of thought in the ag world. One of which is, got to keep growing. I'm going to be corn beans. I got to get more acres. And on the flip side of that, we're going to look for something different. Maybe we're going to do a on-the-farm veggie, on-the-farm pumpkin patch, on-the-farm dairy, on-the-farm chickens. Doing the custom beef processing, going to farmers markets with the beef and the pork. Vicki Alsketter was great about promoting her
She is,
pork.
yeah.
And so there's really two trains of thought there. Which one's right? Which one's going to be the most successful in 5 years? That's going to be the fun challenge that we're facing.
And I think, I always try to find a positive in everything. I think the positive out of 2020, out of COVID, was that it actually showed where does your food come from, and brings people closer together to farm raised and education too as well. Do you see that as well?
I would say I've seen a lot more of, let's get back to what
the basics
are. Wait a minute, we've listened to years, Crisco's a great thing. Well, okay, now they're saying maybe we got to go back to lard.
To beef, and to the beef fat, frying your French fries at
Yes.
Bake and Shake, going back to the basics and
Going back to, I can sit there and start rattling off studies I've heard of over the years on the dairy products, but we haven't got enough time today.
So, well, Buster, we appreciate you. You have anything else for Buster? And Jim, anything? You guys can go out and look at the pear trees afterwards and discuss that. So, but folks, again, if you see something in the news and you're not sure, ask one of our local farmers and get to the source of it. That would be my 2 cents. What's your 2 cents, Buster, on things?
That's go to the horse's mouth, and that's about where you got to get the right answers. And there's a lot of people out there that will sit and talk. Most farmers are very passionate about what they do. So if you got questions, ask.
Yep. Well, Buster, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming here and being on the show with us. And folks, we'll be back next week, the Lord and weather willing.
This live video stream is made possible in part by WLCN's live stream technology sponsor, Me Realty, located at 602 Keokuk Street in Lincoln, and online at merealty.com. The preceding program is a presentation of WLCN 96.3 FM and WLCNonline.com.